Very excited to have my next guest join us. She has a debut album which is just fantastic that she just dropped. It's called Tales of a Failed Shapeshifter. Boy, what a title. And Beihold.
Yay!
How are you?
I'm great, how are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for being here and doing this.
Of course.
You know, I just said, what a title. It just sounds so dire and hopeless and what have you. But you're not always like that. You're quite pleasant today.
Oh, thank you. I actually don't know if it's a dire title at all. I think it's a good thing to be a failed shapeshifter.
Yes.
And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
The whole album is kind of about me trying to fit all these roles that weren't natural to me after Numb Little Bug. So, you know, when you have a #1 song on the radio and you're like all of a sudden, you know, in these lineups with like, I don't know, Shawn Mendes is headlining and Tate McRae and all this stuff, like you kind of just think, okay, I'm a pop girl. I'm supposed to be dancey and like superstar. And I think that's never been why I got into music ever. Like my favorite artist is Regina Spektor, and I love Fiona Apple and I love Feist. And I think it took a long time to figure out how to actually return to myself after having success. And so the album is about the journey back to self, hence being a failed shapeshifter.
Which is, I think, a lesson to be had throughout the whole process. So, yeah, I guess any type of title that has the word fail or failure or what have you, it just denotes, oh boy, what's going on here, and understanding that. But just to rewind a little bit, I mean, you definitely took a lot of time off, so I'm sure you kind of got grounded and you had a lot of time to reevaluate where you wanted to go, what was expected of you, and kind of put all those things together. What were the positives that you learned about yourself over the last couple of years?
I think I trust myself so much more now than I used to. I also think just like truly realizing that career and momentum, I mean, everyone says it's like this, but sometimes you're like, I'm immune to that. I'm a hard worker. I can, you know?
Yeah.
But it happens to everyone. And I think at this point, when I do experience some sort of failure or something that doesn't live up to what I thought, I'm just like, oh, that's just another one, and it will even out in some way. I'm not like, oh, this is the end.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a healthy mindset.
Now today, here we are in 2026. This is not like 4 years after Numb Little Bug did its thing. How do you see yourself now?
This might sound, I don't know, conceited. I don't mean for it to, but I know I'm a career artist. And I think before I was like, am I a one-hit wonder? Oh no, what do all these people think? Blah, blah, blah. At this point, I don't really care. And I think being a career artist doesn't necessarily also mean you're like very famous. I don't know. Who knows what will happen? But I think I know that I want to make music for my whole life. I know that I also love to write for other people. Like there's no other path for me. This is just, I'm just so sure of it. And I think it's helpful not to be so much at the whim of the comments, you know? At this point, I will laugh at hate comments, which is awesome.
That's great. That's really good to not internalize those things, because everyone always says, who are these people? They're bots. They're just haters. They're trolls. They're rage baiters.
I think hate is actually like endearment, because if you're indifferent, that sucks.
Yeah.
But if you hate, you feel really passionately, and the fact that I could make someone feel really passionately was awesome.
Have you experienced anybody with that much hate?
Yes.
Like, I hate your music, Em.
Yes.
Why can't you be more like Tate?
I say, go listen to Tate.
You have interacted. Did you, like, in person or online? Did you respond?
Everywhere.
Everywhere?
I mean,
that's terrible.
Yeah, but I think with success comes really strong emotions.
Yeah.
Sometimes from people you love, sometimes from people that are very close friends, where they just can't handle your success. I've definitely experienced that.
Wow. With a lot of what you have already shared regarding the songwriting process on this album, there's a lot to unpack with the emotions that you feel with, or feel with comparisons, as well as personal demons. Which song was the one that kind of started all of this?
Brutus was a song I wrote mostly by myself with the exception of the bridge, on the piano. And I had written it during my phase of really intense writer's block, and it was like the first thing in a long time that had come out from me just sitting at the piano, because I felt like I was wasting hours and hours just like trying to write a song and nothing was happening. And that's when I was like, am I a one-hit wonder? Oh no, like maybe they're right, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I was feeling really intensely because I had some friends that were artists that were really taking off. I will not name any names, but really taking off. And I think when I was going through like the worst time of my life, it was hard to see. And I was like, okay, they figured something out that I clearly didn't, and like I've messed up. And where did I go so wrong? Because I had this global attention, you know. But then, I don't know. I just shifted my mindset. I realized it's not that deep. And like, the world certainly doesn't owe you anything. But just writing that song made me feel like songwriting was my superpower again. And I think once that happened, I was like, oh, it's, you know, it's not about any of this outside noise. Like, this is what feels so special.
It's really interesting that this industry is so hyper-focused on comparison, and then also that artists internalize these things. I'm sure you're not the only person that experiences success, and then all of a sudden is like, you know, well, I'm friends with so-and-so, and then look at them, and, you know, 10 times greater. That's a lot of pressure on somebody, especially someone who's still developing as a person, as an artist. And did you feel like you wanted to quit and run away? And
Totally. I was looking at jobs at Petco on LinkedIn.
Really?
I love animals. But yeah, I was like, this industry is too hard for me. I remember I love my parents so much. My mom was very supportive. My dad, he was supportive, but he was like, I think this is too much for you. I was like, no, Dad, this is the only thing I know how to do. I don't know. I wanted to quit, but I couldn't. I was kind of stuck in the middle with no forward motion. I was just like stagnant for a while.
Because all of this really took you by surprise. You weren't like stacked and ready to go with 100 songs, like, okay, Numb Little Bug, now watch this. And, you know, I'm going to come at you with this banger.
And it also really takes finding your musical team and people who understand you in the production world. And I was still like meeting everyone. And that was a whole part of the burnout too, where I was meeting so many people that like were very nice people, but you know, music-wise not a match. And I would just, at a certain point I was leaving all the sessions crying because writing a song is so vulnerable, and really like the process of co-writing is very taxing to me, because when I'm writing alone, there's stuff that just pours out that I don't know how to say if I'm talking with someone. Like, it's just, I don't know, it was just flow state, I guess.
Flow state, yeah.
So at a certain point I was like having more sessions than I had ideas, and I was just like, there's nothing fun about this.
Was there any point in which you felt like, I don't want to work with these people, or was there too much pressure to just be like, okay, I gotta go because they know what they're doing?
I think in the beginning, like around the time of Numb Little Bug, I was getting into some really insane rooms with like really famous producers and writers and people who had like radio hit galore, and all of a sudden I was in the radio hit category. And like, of course, I mean, I wouldn't, there were a couple where it's like, we wrote a song, I didn't like it so much, but then I couldn't say no to returning because like, you don't say no to these people. But I was kind of telling my manager at the time, I was like, this song kind of sucks. And they're like, but it's X, like you have to go, you know?
Yeah.
At this point, I'm very comfortable saying no's. I've said a lot of no's that would probably shock people. But it's really about maintaining what I know M to be.
That's great growth, because you got to go into this with your eyes open and not be so amenable to the fact that these are big names. Just going with the flow does a lot of irreparable damage to your reputation, and you know, like, oh God, how could she release such a song? Doesn't sound like her. That's not what we came for.
Right. And like, there was a tour that I got offered, which was 5 Seconds of Summer. And it was this huge, like, Madison Square Garden sized tour around the US. And, you know, one might say, like, that's a dumb thing to say no to because the exposure would be crazy. But I love Five Sauce, but it's obviously a very different musical category to what I put myself in. And I had been on a tour before where it just definitely wasn't, like, the right audience to discover my music. And I feel like there have been some situations like that where, like, people would be like, how can you in your right mind not take that? you know?
Yeah.
But I think that's how you build self-trust, to be honest, is like just choosing what you know is right for yourself over like always the crazy opportunity. Because the right crazy opportunities will come.
Right.
Maybe with more time, but they'll eventually fit you more, I think.
As you got that confidence and built the sound that you wanted to, lyrically, I'm sure, were those references to journals or phrases and things that you were kind of accumulating as part of therapy and emoting?
Yeah. I mean, I was in outpatient therapy for a majority of making the album, which for those who don't know, outpatient therapy is like hospitalized therapy where you go 3 times a week and there's a group and there are therapists and you're there for like 5 hours, maybe 3 times a week. But it was an amalgamation of things. Like sometimes it really was just flow state. Sometimes it was, I think I was reading a book and I just saw like the phrase strong medicine. And for some reason that really sparked me. It's not even like a crazy matching of words, but I really liked it.
What does that mean in the medical world or therapy or psychological world?
I don't know. This is a book. I don't know. It can mean a multitude of things, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of all the song titles. Like Scared of the Dark is something I had written the chorus of that song when I was 13 years old, and it had been stuck in my head ever since then. It was actually about being scared of the dark, and now it's a song about codependency. But I think things can definitely shift meaning over time. And there's a song on the album called Exorcism where I was having like a really terrible time with depression, and my parents and I were watching a movie on the couch, and I just remember like my body kept contorting like this and I couldn't stay still, and I felt like a fly trapped in a spider web, and the only word I could think of was like, I need an exorcism because there's some sort of demon in my body and I can't get it out. And I was at a point where I was crying every single day. Like, it was not as simple as like, woe is me. It was just like something was wrong, you know?
Yeah.
Or I'd wake up and then just like have a breakdown. So.
Were you scared? I'm sure that must have been just...
Oh yeah, I was terrified.
Just a random occurrence. It wasn't as if...
For months.
Wow.
This is bad.
What was the diagnosis?
I mean, it was just depression. Yeah.
I'm glad you're able to smile and laugh about it. I don't know. Fortunately, I haven't gotten to that level of depression before, so that's why I'm curious, like how the body reacts and what do doctors say and how did they kind of suppress or manage that?
I mean, I was unmedicated for a long time because Numb Little Bug is about feeling numb on medication, and I guess given that my hit song was about medication being not so lovely, I was like, well, no meds free.
Yeah.
But, you know, I had this conversation with a friend recently. His name is Livingston. I don't know if you've talked to him before. He's an artist as well. But we were talking about how people are like, oh, meds are so unnatural. Like, why would you put that into your body? So many of the things we experience are so unnatural, like social media and like the dopamine rush and like things that the cavemen know nothing about. Things that we put into our bodies in food that, like, I don't know how it's approved in America because a lot of those ingredients aren't in Europe, stuff like that, where it's just like we're victims of unnatural things that it makes sense,
right.
I think,
Yeah.
to put something that can like help even out your emotions into your body. But finding the right medication for me after a lot of time, it made all the difference.
And did you try to explore natural alternatives?
You know, I did the chakra stuff.
Yeah.
I did the like stones. I'm a little woo-woo, so it was
I was
worth
going
a
to say
shot.
we're doing this in LA, right?
Right,
So,
of course, yeah.
but I kind of subscribe to that too. As few chemicals that I could put into my body, the
Right.
better. And I think even just being of Chinese descent, my mother's always making some kind of herbal tea or
Right.
what have you, and like, take this for your depression or take this for,
Right.
you know, so you don't get the flu.
Right. I'm curious to learn more about Eastern medicine. That's something I'm actually very interested in.
Not all of it tastes good.
I'm sure. I'm sure that's the case.
My mom put a lot of brown sugar in various potions that she gave me as a kid.
My grandma also, she would do, whenever I was on my period, she would make little like, Persian concoctions that
Serious?
were very, maybe it was the placebo effect, I don't know, but I was like, my grandma and her witchcraft. Like,
Yeah.
she made this.
Did your mom inherit any of those recipes?
She does her own versions.
And did she try to give you any of that?
She does more. It's this thing. It's a Persian tradition where you burn frankincense and you put it over someone's head and it's steaming, and it's supposed to cast away evil. Which I have a friend at the shoot and she is nodding because my mom has also done it to her.
And did you do that? Were you trying to?
Yes, I do pretty
when
often.
you were contorting watching the movie, did she immediately go to the cabinet and?
No, I could have used it.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Next time, Mom.
What's Mom doing? She's so westernized now.
I guess, but now medication really
Now
less on Mom now. because
less
of
on
the
Mom.
medication.
Well, keep exploring those alternatives because, like you said, chemicals are not so good. Not to get too political and deep into it, but how is your family dealing with the events that are going on right now? And do you still have family there?
We do still have family there in Iran. My family is being very strong. And I think I've kind of, every day I'm asking my mom, how are you doing? And, you know, when I went camping, I took this picture of the sun rising in Trona Pinnacles, which was like this image that she was like, this is exactly how I feel about Iran, where a new sun is about to rise. And I think she's finding a way to remain, I don't know if positive is the word, but like optimistic and hopeful about what's happening. Obviously it's really scary, but Iran has been under a bad regime for a long time.
Yeah. In fact, your mother, from what I understand, immigrated to the United States to escape, right? She was part of, I guess, the revolution.
You know what? I thought that was the case, and I've said that in many interviews. It is not.
Oh, well, let's correct that.
She went to boarding school, and then she went to college because she wanted to study film. I think some members of my family did escape because of the revolution, but my mom was like, you really make it sound dramatic, but it wasn't dramatic. So I'm making the record straight.
Okay. When you wrote Van Gogh, which is one of my favorite songs on the album, well, tell me the story behind that and making that, and also the lyrical genesis.
Yeah, so I was messing around on piano, and I started playing this piano part that plays in the hook. And I was like, whoa, I'm really good at piano. Because that's crazy. It's a really crazy part. And then a few days later, I was scrolling on TikTok, and I realized it was actually a very famous classical piece by Handel called the Passacaglia, I believe. Passacaglia. And then I realized it was public domain, so it was fine. And I went to my producer, and we kind of just messed around, put this pop beat over it. We actually wrote a completely different song called Love on TV to that beat.
That's so funny.
But
That you were just doing it on piano, tinkering around, not knowing that you probably internalized that from years ago.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That says a lot about your training and what you were taught.
I mean, I grew up on classical music and like playing classical music and jazz, and there's a lot of stuff that's just in there.
Yeah.
But
And here you are thinking, I'm a genius.
yeah, I was like, wait, writer's block who? Like, I'm really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, the song,
And then Love on TV. So
Love on
someone was
TV.
watching The Bachelor or something, and
I don't even remember. It just wasn't it. And I was like,
Yeah.
this beat and this piano part is too cool for this concept. And so we switched to the concept of Van Gogh, which is sort of like, you know, a successful artist who will never know his own worth, and also became famous after he died, I guess is the story, and went so crazy he cut his ear off. And there were just a lot of things where I related to like the spiraling, the going crazy, and like probably, you know, having talent that people will praise you for, but you can't see it yourself.
yeah. Is there a song that you hold dear on this album that is for you?
I think Won't Let Go is a very important one to me. That one is about my grandmother's Alzheimer's, and we're very close.
And that's her voice.
Yes.
Voicemail in the beginning.
That's her voice in the beginning. She doesn't talk much now, but it was a little funny because when I was picking the voicemail to go at the beginning, there's a bunch of different ones. And there's one where she just talks about how she has these artichokes ready for me, and she's also very upset that Donald Trump won. So that was another option, but I think we went with the right one maybe. But she's also my neighbor, so I see my grandma all the time. I'm yet to actually sit down and listen to the song with her. I think
Really?
she's heard it, but she's also in a different time schedule of sleeping and being awake and all this. So soon we'll listen to it together soon.
Well, congrats on this album. Like I say, it's fantastic. Look forward to seeing you perform live and all of those things.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time. And Beihold, right here on B-Sides.
Yay.